All right, guys, it's been a while since I've gotten to say this, but I actually need you to get something out for notes today. So here we're going to be finding the vertex from standard form. We've been doing that all last week using completing the square, which, if you remember, was a pretty difficult method. But today we're just going to use a little shortcut for it. And along the way, we're going to also find the axis of symmetry. Okay? Remember, parabolas are always symmetric, so we're going to find that line that they're symmetric about. So, shortcut. The x value of the vertex can be found using the formula x equals negative b over 2a. For my notes, I would advise you to write down everything you see on this paper, but there are some key things you really must write down. If I say to memorize something, guys, you definitely need to know it. And it's hard to memorize something if you don't have anywhere to go back and read it, unless you just want to watch these videos over and over and over again. Anyways, if we use this formula, x equals negative b over 2a, it's going to give us the axis of symmetry because the axis of symmetry is just x equals a number. Well, considering we're going from standard form and we know b and a, when we plug b and a in, we're just going to get a number out. Well, that's our axis of symmetry, but it's written as a line, so it's x equals a number. On our way to finding the vertex, we find that x value. Well, and if now we know the x value, think about standard form. A is a number, B is a number, C is a number, and now X is a number. So everything on the right-hand side is just numbers, meaning we can evaluate it and find a single value for Y. And if we found X and Y, that's a vertex, that's a point, okay? Your assignment today is on Delta Math, and your Delta Math assignment is going to ask you one of these two questions each time. That's why they're bulleted separately, okay? So, if you get just axis of symmetry, that's the easier question. Okay, that one's a little bit quicker. But it's nothing to fear if you get vertex, because along the way, we're going to find that axis of symmetry anyways. So we're just going to do one problem, and we're going to find the vertex. And along the way, I'll highlight when we have then found the axis of symmetry, so that if you're on Delta Math and you get an axis of symmetry problem, you know where you can stop. Okay, so here's our first problem. Y equals 4x squared minus 48x plus 152. It's in standard form. We're ready to go. And we want to use our shortcut. Our shortcut is x equals negative b over 2a. Well, in this case, b is negative 48. Negative makes a positive 48 over 2a, a being 4. That means we're going to have 48 over 8, which means it all comes down to being a 6. So what have we found? We found that x equals 6. Think back to that note page that you should have written down. When we have x equals a number, that is our axis of symmetry. So this is our axis of symmetry. If that was all you were asked to do, that's what you would type in and you would be done. Axis of symmetry. However, if you were trying to find the vertex, okay, the vertex, you're only partway done. But from there, it's mostly calculator work. So in our standard form, as I said earlier, the right-hand side is all numbers except for the x's, but now we know what x is. So y equals 4 times x, which is 6 squared, minus 48 times x, which is, again, 6, plus 152. Well, if you want to do that by hand, if you want to do that in your head, great. If not, use your phone calculator, use an online calculator, use whatever calculator you need to do, and type that right side in. This was 4 times 6 squared minus 48 times 6 plus 152. We hammer all that into the calculator, and we get out 8. So we know that y equals 8. Well, if we have two values, x and y, we know that tells us our vertex. Let's be a little more specific though, a little quick review. If this is a positive a value, we know that it opens upwards, so we can actually call that vertex a minimum, and we know that minimum is 6, 8, because every point is made up of an x and y value. Let's not get lost in just crunching a bunch of numbers and following directions. Let's think about when something like this could be used. This type of problem is not on your homework, but it very easily could show up in future exams or in quizzes. This is an actual application problem. We're opening up a coffee shop on campus. Okay, we were given this profit formula. Someone probably worked it out for us. Maybe it's 2 cents is what it costs us to make a cup of coffee. 3 is what we charge for it. Maybe it costs us $20 for a startup. This is a quadratic profit function. Now, quadratic profit functions, just to give you the lay of the land, are not heavily used. They're really mostly used for diminishing return type problems, if I remember correctly. But let's just go with it. Let's talk about this as if this was our business. Well, we're a business owner. What do we want to do? We want to maximize our profit. You want to make as much money as you can. And that key word there is maximize. Well, let's think about it. This is a negative a value, meaning this parabola indeed opens downwards, meaning it has a maximum somewhere. And if I'm owning the business, I want to find that. I want to find that perfect sweet spot where I'm making as much money as I can before my returns start diminishing. Okay? So let's do this. And this is real world numbers. So these are not going to work out as pretty sometimes. But you got to understand, in the real world, like we saw with our vertical motion problems, numbers aren't always perfect, nice whole numbers. Sometimes we get a decimal here or there, and it's not the end of the world. But if you were to try to complete the square on this to find the vertex, it would be a nightmare. However, with our shortcut, we can find a vertex pretty easily just using our calculator. This would be negative b over 2a, which is negative 3 over 2 times negative 0.02. Okay? I certainly don't want to try to do all that stuff in my head, so we're going to pop a calculator up for it. This would be negative 3. Let's do it as a fraction. Negative 3 over 2 times a, which is negative 0.02. And we get a nice even 75. That kind of makes sense. Okay, that'd be 75 is our x value. So we have found that x equals 75. And remember, x was the number of coffee cups sold. So our maximum happens when we sell exactly 75 cups of coffee. We probably only want to make that many if that's where our maximum profit ends. Well, let's see how much money would that be. Let's take 75, because that's our x value, and let's plug it in to our standard form in both places. Certainly don't want to find yourself doing that one by hand, so let's use a calculator. Negative 0.02 times x, which we found to be 75 squared, plus 3, and I'm just going straight from this formula, guys, okay? I'll let you see it right there. Plus 3 times x, which is 75, oops, minus maybe the $20 it cost us to get started up. A lot of crazy numbers. Spits out 92.5. Now, this is where a lot of people would probably say, great, we found y. Y is 92.5. But if your owner of the business comes to you and says, hey, I need you to work this out for me. I need you to find what our maximum profit is. And you go to him and say, all right, maximum profit's 92.5. That's not really how we use that in terms of the business world. We would say our maximum profit, if I can get this pen to work a little bit better, is $92.50. That's how you would say it in the business world.